So I'm gonna do another instructional video here, second video of the night, and we've talked about a bunch of things. We talked about statues, we've talked about rules, we've talked about landings. The next thing I want to talk about is, or I guess we've talked about delay, and one of the next things I want to talk about is smoke spacing, and as well as when to throw your shocks. So let's see if we can find some good examples of this today. I'm just going to wing in this. I had a terrible go here. My tablet wasn't responding for beans. So when I looked at this up prior to, I determined that this line right here was where these cannons could reach to. So I thought that my first smoke should have been right in here somewhere. So that's a little pre-op planning. That's something you should kind of do to gauge the range of the deals. I just kind of lost control with my girls going all crazy off the boats. Now, when you look right here, you have the smoke timers. And so for training purposes, when you start, you have this timer right here. That's what we're looking at. That's your smoke timer. That's when your timer is going to run out. Now, when this timer gets to, so you have your timer, right? And it's going around. My general rule of thumb is when the timer gets to 3/4, that's when your critters should already be in the air, and you start throwing your farthest smoke. You always throw your farthest smokes first, unless there's something immediately close to you that can kill all your Zookas right away, like flamethrowers or machine guns. Then you would smoke the flamethrowers or the hot pot first, and then you would start from the back, working your way back of the base, working your way forward on your shocks. And what that does for you is when you throw this shock here, and then you throw this shock right here. If you throw this shock here, and you throw this shock here, they're both flying kind of relatively the same, but this one lands at the same time that this one lands, so the shocks are still going at the same time. And then when you do your second rounds, it's shock again. And that's, you throw your shocks from the back of the base to the front of the base. Typically for training purposes, you want to throw your shocks if you have not lost the delay. If you've lost the delay, you definitely need to throw them at 3/4. If you've not lost the delay, then you need to throw them. You can throw them a little later, and it just depends on where you are in the base. So I don't think I've thrown one yet, and I'm a little late here because I'm just through critters. So I was late as heck on my shock. And this is like pushing it into pro territory, and I'm not very far. If this would have been any farther back on the base, I'd have been roasted. So lost a couple of Zookas, but you can see there, I mean, that's about as late as you can possibly throw a shock for this position of the base. And the critters actually saved my ass because they landed a little closer, and then the RL tried to retarget them. And so then you got to realize it takes a couple of seconds for the shocks to get there. So when you've already lost the delay, you need to throw them a little earlier on your second round. So shock out and shock out. And then I should have thrown that critters way earlier. Something else I wasn't thinking of. I knew I could take this base, but I should have thrown this set of critters over here a lot earlier, because then I could have saved more of my girls, and I would have taken the base down sooner instead of saving them for the end to try to take the base down barely. And that's something a pro player is going to think about when they, and as you get better, as you advance. So something to think about here. Let's talk about that for a second. on the critters, I threw my first set of critters here so that the flamethrower or the grappler would pull them out of the flames and send them back there instead of grabbing my girls. And then, and I was hoping it'd distract this a little bit. Now, had that not have been the case, probably a set of critters in here would have lasted a pretty long time, and would have saved a bunch of my girls. Or a set of critters, not so much probably as helpful back here, or maybe throwing them right here and then letting them split the difference. But like, you would never want to throw your critters like up against flamethrowers or machine guns typically, because they're just not going to last very long. They're not going to live very long. So if you're using them to distract defenses or whatever, like if there was another RL back here and I wanted to distract it, if there was a bunch of flamethrowers right here, I wouldn't want to throw it here. I'd want to throw it back over here so that it's closer to the RL than my girls are, but still farther away, you know, from anything that's going to annihilate the critters super, super fast and make them more useless. So always try to plan where you're going to throw your critters before. Like I said, I chose this spot right here because it was between the grappler and my girls, and it saved me from, I don't know, the grappler pulling it off, which isn't on the ladies, that isn't that big of a deal. But, you know, already sitting in this spot facing a crap load of cannon fire. Same kind of thing if we go and we look at another map here. I want to look at maybe Tapir, for example. If you're doing your core rush, typically we core rush from, a lot of times it's done from right here in this area, and then you would shock this, and you would shock this, and you would throw a set of critters in here or back here somewhere. Or the other way Tapir can be done a lot of times is you go up the back here, you flash kill this RL, and then you come back here and you shock these, and you kind of work your way in and you kill some of these MGs, and then you pull back and you kill some of this, and then you can just snipe the core from the back. It's a complicated hit that takes pretty much full boost, and a lot of times you can pull it off, and sometimes you get your ass handed to you. Burns a lot of GBE. But anyways, so on this base, where we're a lot farther back on the base from where the gunboat's going to sit, getting back to our original topic, our critters and our shocks have to fly a long ways to get all the way back to the space. So if we're shocking this, we may want to even throw our shock, like if we have our timer, when our timer's like, you know, a little less than 3/4 of the way, maybe 2/3, and then, you know, because they take a certain amount of time to fly this distance, and that comes with experience and repetitions to know how far or how long it takes them to fly. So on the base that I just did, I was able to wait till the timer almost expired because the base is here in the center of the base. If I would have done that back here, I would have just breezied the whole thing and everybody would have died and I'd have completely wasted the attack. So that's just kind of comes with experience, but when to throw your shocks in your critters, 90% of the time you always throw critters first and then you throw your shocks. And then you typically throw your shocks from the farthest shock back, working your way closer to the beach, because that way they'll basically, if you watch like smoke videos where they're throwing 4 shocks at a time, they all, if you look at them and it seems like they all land at the same time. Realistically, he tapped very quickly those 4, but because he tapped the farthest one away first, they look like they all land at the same time, and then you end up with this perfect shock scenario. So, and you know, that's kind of what you're looking at when we're talking about how to shock things and whatnot. Another thing everybody should consider doing is creating a shock map. And, you know, or if you've got a hard shock coming up on an op, and let's say your goal is to do some kind of crazy shock, and you want to shock all 8 of these, and you want to shock all of this, and then you want to shock like all of this in one shock, then have somebody set up 8 turrets like that, and 8 turrets like this with the you can count the squares. So we've got fairly easily we've got this is easy to create, and then we can see that we've got a statue in between, and then we've got this, and this is 1 square below these other ones. So it's 1 statue wide, which is 2 squares, and 1 square below, and then we've got another statue, so that's 2 more squares, and we can recreate these patterns on our own basis and then throw friendly challenges, and the guy can practice hitting these shocks. And then what that does is it turns a hard shock into an easy shock, because you may find that if I wanted to shock all of this, where is it you actually have to tap to hit all that? Is it right here? Is it over here a little bit? Can you move it over a little bit to just catch the edge of this and catch some more of that? And that's the kind of things that the better players tend to start doing, is they set up the shocks on the hits to see what can be shocked and what can't be shocked, and then also exactly where you have to post it up on the deal on the map to hit the shock correctly, and not shock your girls, and to do the things that you need to do. And anybody can ask, hey, I need this shock set it up in the back of your base or whatever. With the new screenshot, it'll screenshot your base, you can put your base back, and then the guys can sit there and practice shocking that as much as they need to till they can get it done. Probably rambled on long enough tonight. So that's basically your timing on your shocks. It comes with experience. 3/4 of a timer is a good place to start. Usually your critters need to be in the air before that timer, and the farther your shocks are towards the back of the base, the sooner you need to throw them. If you lose your delay, you need to throw shocks really early, because you'll get your girls annihilated. It's better to throw your shocks like 2 seconds too early and do 8 seconds worth of damage than to throw them 2 seconds too late and do 0 damage, is what it basically boils down to. As you get better and you get on DC, DE teams, then you can worry about making that shock last for all 10 seconds and getting the absolute most out of your shock. I would say for most guys right now at the level that we're at, it's best just to make them count. 8 seconds worth of shooting is better than the maximum of 12 or 13 that you can get, instead of no damage at all. So that's something I kind of like to start drilling in, and then as you get better, you can start playing with that shock timer a little bit, and that your smoke timers, and figure out as you get used to the bases and more repetitions, when you need to throw them and how late you can actually throw them, and then of course paying attention to losing the delay and stuff like that. So we've been killing it, guys, for the most part. This is exactly how Dragons is supposed to be run. We've done Stronghold a couple of times, and I'm not going to go through the attacks, but we basically used almost all of the attacks, 22. So we had a couple of guys in reserve, which is good. That's about where I'd like to be usually on these. Stronghold and 23 attacks. That one was a little close, but all good. We had to run Fox today. We were just about 20 intel short. Hopefully we can pick up another guy and we can make that up, but that means that more people than that are shorting us on intel if we want to keep running strong. We're probably a little too strong to be running Fox right now, so we need to try to make as much intel as we can to keep getting into the Stronghold, guys, so everybody gets a chance to have a go. Thanks for listening and putting up with my rambling, and there'll be more to come as we go on. Good job, guys, and good luck.